Welcome back to CDC Growthonomics. Today we'll continue our conversation about what we'll be talking about, humans behind data. So last time we talked about the specific human behind the customer data, which is your customers, and understanding customers and how important it is for you to understand customers, not look at data as in data, but really understanding your customers behind the data to be able to really use data effectively. Today, I want to talk about how the second aspect, which is your stakeholder, and so if I go back to my example that I started with last time, which was this beauty product, which sells a la carte. It sells either a la carte, lipsticks and so on and so forth, or it sells and subscription. Maybe there's a $9.99 package and then there's a $15.99 package. And you as an analyst, and I'm going to go back and take that example of you as an analyst, I'm going to talk about your stakeholders and understanding your stakeholders in order to truly derive the value. So let's say, and I was going to take that example again that we started with last time, which was segmentation, right? Your marketing or your brand folks want to understand who are these customers, what kind of distinct customer exist, who are subscribing to the product or just browsing, or actually buying a la carte. Maybe there are ones and dones here. Maybe there are subscribers here, premium subscribers, there are basic subscribers. And do we understand who are these people? In order for us to understand these customers, we need to understand that our understanding, there are things that for this data, for the customer data, to truly convert into some meaningful segmentation, what needs to happen is that you need to have an understanding. You need to get input from your stakeholders on the why and the what of the data. So, for example, if you were to be doing this segmentation approach, one of the first things you as an analyst will need to work with your stakeholders, whether it's a marketing stakeholder or brand stakeholder, to understand what is their understanding of the customer. How do they view this different distinct customer, the ones and dones, the value seeker, the convenience seeker, the people who are worried about they have concerns with their skin, the people who are really beauty conscious, people who are just heavy product usage. And what's the psychology behind all of that? A lot of that information would come from your stakeholders. So this is how, as you even begin to put an analysis plan together, you need to get an understanding of your customer through your stakeholders. We often call them hypothesized segments, even though, for example, segmentation is it's unsupervised learning, and people often think the data will tell me the story. You still go in with a hypothesized segment, and the hypothesized segment then creates features which are meaningful. So we talked about it last time. If you don't have meaningful features, you get garbage out of it. So, auto ML without human action doesn't work. The other aspect of this, so this is the input into the modeling part. The other aspect of it is also your stakeholders. What is their intention on how do they want to use this data? How do they want to use this segmentation? When do they need this information by? Who are the people who are going to take action? Who are the people who need to approve it? What is happening around in their life experience, their career, their departments that is driving them to ask this? And why all of this is important? Because minus the human, you would think you get data from the database, you do a dot predict and dot fit, and you should get some segments out of it. But then what? Let's say you got some segments out of it. Magically, you have segments. How does the data? How does this insight? How does this cluster? How does this segmentation that you have arrived at? how does that fit into the bigger picture that these humans meaning these stakeholders need to put it in place, right? These stakeholders need to maybe they are launching they're looking into rebranding, and they want to rebrand their product to customers who are highest value to them, and they're trying to understand high value customers, what do they look like versus low value customer. Once you understand the why behind the what, your approach to segmentation would change, right? Or let's say the ask is completely different. They are your brand has wants an understanding of personas, so they can do customization of basically the product, the packages. They want to build better what goes in this 15.99, what goes in this 9.99 bag. They want to customize it based on personas they understand. So that's a different ask, right? So the human behind who's asking and who's going to take actions on it is actually informing what you do with data. And that's very, very important. So whether it is feature engineering, think about feature engineering, whether it is hypotheses that you go in with, and the timing and the constraints and the context in the mind of your stakeholder. And then when it comes back to them taking action, the insights you produce, how do you share this information? It again needs to be in the context of your stakeholders, how they're consuming this information. How do you influence them towards action? It's also going to be a function of how much context you understand about that stakeholder. And then what propels them towards action? How do you tell that story? Storytelling with data, very, very human aspect. All these are very important aspect around data. So data is not an antithesis to human. Data with the human intuition, human context is what produces insights. So as you look to explore data, think about the human. As an analyst, think about your stakeholders. Also think about last time in the first episode of this series, we talked about if you're a financial analyst and reporting to streets, and your stock, what is the market expecting? And I mean, it's very complex, the whole perception of a brand, with a huge breadth in PE ratios, and there are people who are willing to pay lot higher value for Apples of the world versus other technology. So how does that data, how do your human, the stockholder in this case, how is your stockholder perceiving your data, your brand is going to have an important role in how you report that information back to them. Now, obviously within the SEC compliance, but how do you really set up targets? Number of new acquisitions you're going to have this quarter. How do you do projections? How do you do LTV? All of that has to be in the context of your stockholders and your stakeholders. And that's when you're going to get real power from your data. So next time, I'm going to talk about the last and very critical aspect of this humans behind the data, which is you. See you next time.